Hello and welcome to the Screenplay Lab. I'm your host, Jeff Barker. I am a screenwriter, and this is episode 14. And this is a podcast where we study and appreciate the standalone beauty of the screenplay as an independent literary piece, not just a blueprint from the film. We take one screenplay, we break it down, deconstruct it, we find out what we love about it, what's unique about it, and most of all, what we as screenwriters can all learn from it. And this week, our screenplay is La La Land by Damien Chazelle, a 2016 romantic comedy musical drama that hits all the right notes. Can you believe it has been 9 years since you watched this in theaters? And I know you did because a lot of people did. It won tons of awards. It was a fan favorite. It tied the record for the most Oscar nominations, 14 Oscar nominations at the 2017 Academy Awards. It won Best Director, Best Actress, Best Cinematography, Score, Song, of course, and then nominated for all those other ones, including Best Original Screenplay. And that's why we're taking a look at it again today, because there are some unique things in here that we can learn from. By the way, it also swept the Golden Globes with 7 wins, all 7 of the nominations it won, and it won 5 BAFTAs. This screenplay is a genre-bending story in the best way possible. It's the classic Hollywood musical trope, which we don't see people tackling very often. You know, movies like Singing in the Rain, twisted into a modern 21st century love story. But what is so unique about the love story is that it gives you this unexpected, bitter ending. In the era of Lifetime and Hallmark, we've been conditioned for the traditional romantic story where we expect a certain ending and we put that on hold so that we can enjoy the process of getting to that ending. If you tried this with this story 9 years ago, this film and this screenplay, you were shocked by it because it didn't do that. And that's one of the reasons why it was nominated for Best Original Screenplay back in 2016 into 2017. And what makes this screenplay truly unique is that as a musical, it doesn't rely on lyrics on the page. In fact, there's not a single lyric in this screenplay at all. It is detailed movements, almost choreographed on the page of what's going to happen. And I say almost choreographed, and we'll talk about that as we get deeper into the screenplay. But first, let's talk about the writer of this meta story, Damien Chazelle. He's an ambitious, visionary filmmaker, one of my favorites. He wrote, in fact, one of my very favorite films of all time, Whiplash, which I know I'm not in any danger of being unique with that being one of my favorite films. It is so good, and it gives you an idea of the type of stories that he can tell. And we have lots of years of getting films from Chazelle. He just turned 40, and think about it, when this film came out, La La Land, he was only 31. He was the youngest director to ever win Best Director. He grew up in New Jersey, as so many of our great filmmakers have. His mother is a medieval historian. His father, a computer science professor at Princeton. He went on to Harvard. He did go to Princeton Prep or high school. I'm not sure how that works, but he went to Harvard College, so highly educated. And the story begins there because that's where he met Justin Hurwitz, who's his friend, his collaborator. He's a musician. He has composed music for all of his major films. And together they have become quite the team. Originally, he aspired to be a jazz drummer. Okay, there's where Whiplash comes from. And that's where the filmography begins, Whiplash, 2014. Originally, it was a short film. It did very well, so he expanded it to a feature. It got made. It won 3 Oscars. Imagine your very first film winning 3 Oscars. One of them, of course, to the amazing performance by J.K. Simmons. It's about obsession and perfectionism and abuse. And then La La Land, 2016, 2 years later, that's where he won his Oscar for Best Director. 2 years after that, he followed up with First Man. He did not write that film, but he did direct it. That one also stars Ryan Gosling. And then Babylon came out in 2022, and that one's about 1920s Hollywood transitioning from the silent film era. It had some mega stars in it, and it didn't do as well at the box office or with critics or with streaming. And currently he is working on a secret project. All we know is that it may or may not be taking place in Paris, and his good friend Justin Horwitz may or may not be involved. So really we don't know anything, but he is working on something. And he's married to Olivia Hamilton, who is an actor and a producer, and he has a child. So how was this screenplay developed? Well, it started based on his passion of jazz and Hollywood movies, musicals, and also what he was going through, this idea of being a struggling young artist in Los Angeles. And the idea originally came when he was in Harvard still, and he and Horwitz began working on it back then. They wanted it to be a modern day musical, and the first drafts were written in 2009, and it was originally called The Music of the City. So a lot changed about the screenplay and, of course, the title of the film. In many cases, though, the songs that you hear in the film were original, at least City of Stars and Another Day of Sun. Those go all the way back to the original screenplay. And the story is the screenplay went all over town and everyone rejected it and said, musicals are dead. We can't do it. This is 2015, 2014. It's not going to happen. So he pivots and he develops Whiplash based off his passion of being a jazz drummer, which he did growing up. Made that short story, got financing, made the full feature, and then that film was a hit at the 2014 Sundance Festival. After his major success, La La Land was back on the table. As you could imagine, everybody said, well, let's give this thing another look. Maybe it'll be okay. And then Summit got behind it, which is a part of Lionsgate. They greenlit it, but only if he could find bankable talent. Well, I'd say that they found bankable talent with Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone. That box checked. But perhaps the most fun part of the development story is that the original character, Mia, was based on his good friend and now wife, Olivia Hamilton. And she's a more reserved, cautious person, so the character was totally different. And when Emma Stone came on board, they went in and rewrote the character to more fit her charismatic and out there personality. And that is something that screenwriters have to do. If the character doesn't fit, go in, turn it up, make it fit. And it worked out great. And how was it produced? Well, it started with those rehearsals. You can imagine the amount of rehearsal work that went into something like this. 95 days of rehearsal before shooting. And during that time, 3 months, Ryan Gosling learned how to play the piano. For real. Not just play it, but play it at a high level. In fact, there are no hand doubles in the film. That is him playing the piano throughout beautifully. It was shot over 40 days, which is a super tight schedule for the amount of setups in this film. In fact, 60 locations all over Los Angeles, and that now famous 105-110 interchange that was shut down for 2 days so they could shoot the opening scene, which is now one of the most famous opening scenes in modern cinema. It had a $30 million budget, which is pretty modest for the scope of this film. Lionsgate was the main financer and the distributor. Of course, there was also Black Label and Mark Platt and Gilbert Films. And then Imposter Pictures, that is Chazelle and Horwitz's company. They also get a tag on this one. It was shot in this old cinema look of the musicals with the 35 millimeter film to give it sort of the grainy look, but also turning up the color palette that's very vivid, trying to match the old Technicolor. And it does, it jumps off the screen at you. And it shows people still like and appreciate that look. We also like the shadows and the darkness. But think about Barbie last year, how bright that color palette was. That's this film back in 2016. It premiered at Venice in August of 2016, did very well. Then it came out in December and made $22 million over its first wide weekend altogether. And then so far, it has made $445 million, 14 times its budget. I'd say that's pretty good. All right, let's get to the screenplay. And we always start with the log line. And the official log line of La La Land is: a jazz musician and an aspiring actress fall in love, but their dreams for the future threaten to tear them apart. And here's my go at it. In the City of Stars, a jazz musician and an inspiring actress find love, but they must choose between the spotlight and each other. Screenplay statistics, it's 85 pages, 122 scenes. Runtime of the film is 2 hours and 8 minutes. That's 1 minute and 30 seconds per page and 1.4 scenes per page. And so certainly on the small end with 85 pages, but that is because the way the choreographed dancing is described in the screenplay, even though it takes up a lot of real estate, it takes up a lot of space where we're not doing dialogue, which is really what stretches out the pages. Sometimes we like to look at the title and see what meanings we can derive from it. I found 3 pretty obvious ones here. First, La La Land is the nickname for Los Angeles. It's been around a long time. It's not something people are saying very much these days. At least I don't hear it, but it is a classic nickname. Also, La La Land is about being lost in your own imagination. You know, the kid in class who's just daydreaming and the teacher says, "Hey, you're in La La Land. Get back here with us." And the thought here is that it takes some disconnection from reality to be able to pursue this Hollywood dream. If you're not a daydreamer, you're probably not going to make it in this business. And the third meaning of the title is La La as the musical illusion, like la 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 la. It gives it a lyrical quality to the title, so you know exactly what you're getting into. Now to formatting, mechanics, and style, that is where we learn how the screenwriter wants us to read their actual individual screenplays. Part of the process of reading a screenplay is figuring out how to read it. And we start here talking about the white space. You know, despite some thick paragraphs and long monologues, there's still some very good white space here on the page. Here's an example on page 16 to show you some of this beautiful white space where everything flows and you're going down the page in a very progressive manner. And then here's an example, page 1, where we jump straight into this musical number and you see how it gets pretty chunky there. Of course, it gets way even more chunkier than this at other places in the screenplay. You can see here on 21, 22 how it gets really thick. And this is all a description of what is happening in the dance number. You see there at the top, A Lovely Night. That's the name of the song. There's no lyrics like we talked about before. All they do is put the name of the song directly in the screenplay and then an example of what's supposed to take place. It's not time to music. It's not time to lyrics. It's like he goes here and he does this. He sits on the bench. He goes over here and dances with this couple. You know, whatever's taking place. And it allows some space for the actual choreographer, who, by the way, in this case was Mandy Moore. I mean, she's like everywhere. And it gives the choreography the freedom to, okay, this is what he wants to accomplish in this scene, at this part of the song. Now let's do the choreography for it. Here's an example of what it looks like on the screen. There's a tremendous use of parentheticals in this screenplay for every way you can imagine. A parenthetical being used, and probably some ways you haven't thought of. I saw something for the first time I'd never seen before, but we'll get to that in a second. First, just look at this example here on page 4. This is Mia auditioning, and you see how parentheticals are very specific about the actor's thoughts and movements. Just in this one quick monologue, you have, as her smile contracts, silence, she clenches her jaw, and a tear falls from her eye, and then a little further down, crying now. So it's like that quite a bit in the screenplay. And here's the parenthetical use that I haven't seen, and it is introducing a character with a parenthetical. Alexis here on page 5, her parenthetical says, appearing in the hall, 26, eating Cheerios. So that's like what you would see in an action line. And then to her line where it says, Mia, how'd it go? If we just go to the next page, we have another one. Here's Caitlin being introduced. It says appearing, 27, her age. And then look at this, camera direction as a parenthetical. It says for Tracy, when she says what? It says we pan back to Tracy. did she say working? So not only is it a camera direction, but in the same parenthetical, it's also giving her a thought cue, giving the actor what that look is supposed to mean. Chazelle also uses chapters in his screenplay, divides the story up into fourths with winter and then what comes next? Spring, summer, fall. So it kind of takes you through the seasons. And I think it is a metaphor for the seasons of progression as a professional, no hope, a little hope, superstar, megastar, but also in a relationship where you're trying your very best to make it work. Then you have problems, things don't work out. So seasons of life, and that's what we have in the story. Going to take a quick pause here just to say, if you're enjoying this podcast and all the other podcasts, I am so very grateful. Thank you for that. Please don't forget to subscribe and comment, like, leave a review. If you're watching on YouTube, you can also listen to the audio podcast and vice versa. I also do a Substack where I dig into this from the written perspective. And also, if you want to know what's going on with me, the best way to do that is go to my website, jeff-barker.com. Thanks again, and now back to the program.
Thank you for watching my dad's podcast.
Now to the writing of this screenplay, and it's really all about the music. That's what makes this one so interesting and unique. Each song and dance or number in the screenplay advances the character arc. So it's not just there to entertain. It's not just there for them to emote and talk about how they feel at the moment, but it is moving people along. And often multiple characters are being moved along, including obviously our two main characters in each song and dance. And so it keeps the story going. It's not a pause to have fun and sing. It is a critical part of the storytelling. And then what also makes this screenplay unique is what we talked about earlier, is the twist, the subverting the expectations, the tropes of the romantic comedy. You expect one thing, something else happens, but they do it in a very unique and interesting way where you still feel satisfied. And that is, they show you, okay, it didn't end the way you thought, but here's 90 seconds to show you what it would have looked like if you'd have got what you wanted. So you still get that satisfaction, but the characters get to be grounded and authentic of what really happens, what really would take place to them in that situation. But don't think the screenplay is just pages and pages of describing what he wants the characters to do during their dance moves. There's also some dialogue in there and some really, really good dialogue. And of course, when you have brilliant actors like this to bring it to life, it can be heartbreaking. The first dialogue we want to look at will just absolutely level you emotionally. If you're invested in the characters, I mean, maybe you haven't seen this in 9 years, it won't have the impact. But if you're watching this as a film, it is just like devastating. This is Sebastian and Mia, and they're both already going too far down their own paths to be able to come back together. They both realize that. They haven't had a lot of time to spend together. And now that they do, they have to have this conflict that they've been waiting to have face to face. And it's heartbreaking.
Well, whatever, all right? I mean, it's time to grow up, you know? I have a steady job, this is what I'm doing, and now all of a sudden, if you had these problems, I wish you would have said them earlier before I signed on the goddamn dotted line.
I'm pointing out that you had a dream, that you followed, that you were sticking to.
This is the dream. This is the dream.
This is not your
Guys
dream.
like me work their whole lives to be in something that's successful, that people like, you know? I mean, I'm finally in something that people enjoy.
Since when do
Just
you
'cause I
care
don't enjoy it
about
doesn't
being
matter.
liked? Why do you care so much about being liked?
You're an actress. What are you talking about? Maybe you just liked me when I was on my ass because it made you feel better about yourself.
Are you kidding?
No?
But my favorite dialogue of the screenplay takes place on 7071. And this is Emma Stone, Mia, giving us this magical monologue about the pain of rejection. Let's look at these words and how it plays out on the screen.
Because
Why?
I've been to a million auditions, and the same thing happens every time, where I get interrupted because someone wants to get a sandwich, or I'm crying and they start laughing, or there's people sitting in the waiting room and they're like me but prettier and better because maybe I'm not good enough.
Yes, you are.
No, maybe I'm not.
Yes, you are.
Maybe I'm not.
You are.
Maybe I'm not.
You are.
Maybe I'm one of those people that has always wanted to do it, but it's like a pipe dream for me, you know? And then you said it. You change your dreams and then you grow up. Maybe I'm one of those people and I'm not supposed to. And I can go back to school and I can find something else that I'm supposed to do. Because I left to do that and it's been 6 years and I don't want to do it anymore.
And there are so many great action lines in the screenplay, beautiful writing. But if you're looking for this tight, sparse prose, this economy of words that we're always talking about, this ain't it. I mean, he goes into some pretty complex sentence structure, very prosy, very interiority, where he tells us exactly what people are feeling and thinking. More novel type writing or short story type writing. But it really works. The best way to dissect it is to look at page 85, where he describes a single look between Sebastian and Mia over 17 lines of space on the page, which is about a quarter of the page. It says, he nods. They rise from their seats and head to the exit. Just as they reach the door and as David steps out, Mia turns and looks back at Sebastian. He looks at her, their eyes lock, a hint of a tear in both. And ever so subtly, for just a fleeting second, Mia smiles. It's the kind of smile you could miss if you blink. But it's enough to signal to Sebastian that she recognized the melody he played and that she still remembers it and still thinks of it to this day. And then she walks out the door. Sebastian glances at his fellow musicians. Then he nods and they launch into a new chart. Now we'll see how all of that adds up to this gut-wrenching moment. Just to give you another taste of the writing in this screenplay, we'll look at when their song is introduced. On page 14, it says, and then we hear a melody, the one Mia heard outside, the one we'll refer to from now on as Mia and Sebastian's song. The door opens, Mia steps in, she sees Sebastian at the piano, is instantly struck by his playing. And now in brackets, Mia and Sebastian's song. So this indicates that the song has now started. And the rest for the next page and a half or 2 pages here is just what he wants each character to do. And then Mandy Moore will take that and choreograph to try to time it out just right. It says, gradually all sound but the music drops out. We drift away from reality. And then it goes into it. So it doesn't mean you have to write a musical to be able to get something from the screenplay. In fact, I recommend reading the screenplay and reading all types of screenplays, things that you don't write, because you can pull from them. You can just get ideas planted that then come out of you in your own personal way. And that is La La Land by Damien Chazelle, a beautiful and whimsical look at love, sacrifice, being authentic, true to your passion. It's a hard look at what it takes to pull off those artistic dreams that I know you have, I have, and you may, in fact, have to live in La La Land to do it, both literally and figuratively.
It's pretty strange that we keep running into each other.
It is strange. Maybe it means something.
I doubt it. Maybe I'm one of those people that has always wanted to do it, but it's like a pipe dream for me, you know? And then you said it. You change your dreams and then you grow up. Maybe I'm one of those people, and I'm not supposed to.
Because when you get this,
If I get this.
when you get this, you gotta give it everything you got. Everything. It's your dream.
What are you gonna do?
I gotta follow my own plan. Stay here, get my own thing going. And you're in Paris.
Thanks again for watching, and please subscribe and comment and like all that stuff. You can find me on Substack. You can find me on my website, jeff-barker.com. Also, I'm on all the socials. Let's be friends. And I'll see you next time right here on the Screenplay Lab.
Thank you for watching my dad's podcast.